Greetings and welcome. I am JustaVOR, bringing you what I hope is constructive information on what the system of white supremacy, racism, is and how it works, as well as what can be done to replace it with the system of justice. 3 of the biggest lies we were taught about racism, miseducation of the VORs. Before moving forward, I suggest that you view our previous video entitled, How Do Education Systems Support White Supremacy? Miseducation of the VORs, for better context and clarification. On this channel, we have concluded that the terms racism and white supremacy are synonymous and interchangeable, having the same definition, which is as follows: a global system of people who classify themselves as white and who are dedicated to the mistreatment and subjugation of all those they have classified as not white. In this video, we explore 3 of the most impactful lies and misconceptions non-white people have been taught about the system of racism, white supremacy, by those who classify themselves as white. This video was inspired by the question, with all of the knowledge and education we have been allowed access to, why have non-white people, victims of racism, not ended the system of white supremacy? After much study on the subject, and this is mostly JustaVOR VGQ, by the way, I was able to come to the conclusion that non-white people have not ended racism because we have been thoroughly brain trashed by those with the power in the system to practice racism and maintain the system of white supremacy. Many of us are so confused about the way things are that we have no clue as to the impact the system is actually having on us. Far too many of us are unable to see the system as it is. And if one cannot recognize the problem, how effective will their efforts be to solve it? Then we have the fact that the symptoms of the problem cannot be ignored. They are noticeably present. Yet, even if we admit to the presence of the symptoms, we are unable or unwilling to make the connections to the existence of the problem. This is the confusion most non-white people are subjected to because those who benefit from our problem the most are also the ones who taught us to see the world as we see it. Education is important, but not all education is equal. Not all education is constructive. Some education is beneficial for some and extremely destructive for others. This is the case when the white supremacists control the flow of information as well as the ability to process that information. As discussed in the video, How Do Education Systems Support White Supremacy? Miseducation of the VORs, these white supremacists have forced us into a system of miseducation where they have used their powers to dominate, to define non-white people's world. We often ask, is it logical to expect those who classify themselves as white to voluntarily give up their power? The conclusion here, based on research and observation, is that so-called white people, like any other power group in history, will not voluntarily give up their power. So it is up to their victims, those they have classified as non-white, to end this global system of injustice. But how has our brain trashing at the hands of suspected and admitted white supremacists affected our abilities, resulting in our inability to end the system? The ancestor, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, founder of Negro History Week, which evolved into the current Black History Month, illustrated in his book, The Miseducation of the Negro, that when you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. In the previously mentioned video, How Do Education Systems Support White Supremacy? Miseducation of the VORs, we explored the ways in which non-white people have been brain trashed to the point of being unable to solve our greatest problem, the global system of white supremacy. I have concluded that a large part of the reason we are able to solve problems for the white team while being unable to solve our own problems is that we have been taught many lies and misconceptions about the problem, which is the system of white supremacy, racism. Once we dispel these lies and misconceptions, we will be in a better mindset to begin constructively solving the problem without creating new problems. My conclusion is that 3 of the largest and most impactful of the lies are: 1. Racism is an individual effort rather than a system. The truth is that racism is indeed a system that spans the entire globe. 2. Anyone can be a racist. The truth is that the only functional form of racism is the system of white supremacy, and only those who classify themselves as white can practice white supremacy. And 3, racism is about hatred and ignorance. The truth is that racism is driven by fear and logic. What are the major effects these lies have on non-white people? One major effect is confusion about what the system is and how it works. We believe what the power group has allowed us to learn, but then realize many things don't hold up in reality when we are attempting to understand and solve problems that affect non-white people, especially those classified as Black. They have defined our world quite inaccurately. We have been placed under a spell, into an illusion, deluded into a reality that does not exist, while ignoring the truth of the reality within and around us. The confusion is just that deep. Another effect is hopelessness. We are taught that white people are born to be in control and that this is how it's always been and there is nothing we can do about it. That everything white is better. No matter how well we can do or make things, the white man's ice is colder. If you can't beat them, join them. But you can't actually join them. But you can help them maintain their power and maybe they will reward you. But at any moment, anything they give you can be taken back by them because you never actually owned it anyway. Non-white people are deceived into believing that we do own the things they have given us. Many of us become so white identified that we don't even know what team we are on. And even if we do know what team we are on, too many of us are willing to help the white team continue winning because they view non-white people's situation as hopeless. At least, if they help the winning team win, they can at least, maybe, probably, possibly, hopefully, get something out of it. This is the danger of hopelessness and non-white people when it comes to solving the problem of white supremacy. Many victims of racism go about their lives attempting to get as comfortable as possible in the system, while praying that they or those closest to them are not the next ones to suffer the wrath of the racist white supremacists. But even so, we are still being victimized, no matter how comfortable we are made to feel. The mistreatment does not go away. It can be concealed. It can be done undercover, being barely noticeable at times, but still very present. We are still being very much victimized. Hopelessness leads us to accept it. The truth is, it doesn't have to be this way. Another effect is that we are not equipped with the proper tools to solve the problem. Even if we are aware of the problem, less confused, and hopeful of ending it. Recognizing and solving major problems often requires logic and critical thinking skills. The system is not designed so that non-white people are given the tools needed to dismantle the system and produce justice. Justice meaning balance between people, guaranteeing that no person is mistreated, and guaranteeing that the person who needs help the most gets the most constructive help. It is my conclusion that justice is inevitable. Non-white people need to get our minds right so that we can do what is needed to cause an end to this system of injustice. How do we get to these levels of confusion? Through the lies and deceptions given to us via formal education and informal education, such as social norms within society. Each of these lies or misconceptions: 1, that racism is an individual effort rather than a system; 2, that anyone can be racist; and 3, that racism is about hatred and ignorance, benefits the white supremacists who want nothing more than to maintain, expand, and refine the system that has and keeps them in the global power position. Keeping victims of racism, white supremacy, from knowing what the system is and how it works allows those who practice racism to continue their system of injustice while keeping victims confused and hopeless. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing's unified field theory psychiatry supports the idea that white supremacy is a global system of behavior that impacts everything and everyone in the known universe. I suggest viewing the video entitled "Everything, Everywhere, Everyone: Dr. Welsing's Unified Field Theory in Psychiatry and Racism," if you have not done so already, for a more in-depth analysis of the Grandcessors theory and how it applies to our lives in efforts to understand and ultimately solve the problem of the system of white supremacy. Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. introduced Dr. Welsing to the reality that white supremacy, racism, is a system. Mr. Fuller observes that the system of white supremacy racism encompasses and affects every major area of people activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war/counter-war. Mr. Fuller has also developed a code of thought, speech, and action to counter the system of racism, white supremacy, and produce a system of justice with his United Independent Compensatory Code System concept, a compensatory counter-racist code, a textbook/workbook for thought, speech, and/or action for victims of racism, white supremacy. What are your thoughts on these 3 big lies non-white people have been taught about the system of white supremacy, racism? What other misconceptions have we been taught that prevent us from solving the problem of racism and producing a system of justice? Feel free to leave your questions, comments, and concerns. For more information about the purpose and goals of this channel, as well as some basic definitions of words and terms we use in reference to our work, I have included a link below to a video containing this information. If you would like an even better understanding of the code and how it works, please visit ProduceJustice.com to order the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept by Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. There are many constructive suggestions for ending the system of white supremacy, and Mr. Fuller's codebook and his word guide act as guides to getting and keeping on code. If you feel this content is constructive and worth your time and energy, please subscribe and share to support the making of more content in the future. Much appreciation to all the VORs already subscribed. I am JustaVOR, and I am still learning. Thank you for watching. Until next time.
Let me say something that gets to the very crux of the matter, and this may be offensive for some to hear who are not on the side that we're on. White people, we have been the problem for 400 years.
Say that again.
Let me say it one more time for those of you who didn't hear me.